I arrived at the Chetty Jagan International Airport in the summer of 2017. It's about 25 miles south of Guyana's capital city of Georgetown. I had just finished my finals in college and decided to visit my grandfather. I had not seen him in quite a while, not since he had retired as a school teacher in New York City and relocated to his native Guyana. So this trip was a treat for me and a surprise for him. I opted to take a taxi from the airport to his house. I remembered the way, and it would definitely ruin the surprise if I had him pick me up at the airport. I saw lots of changes since I had last visited. The roads were newer, smoother in some parts, wider in others, and there were definitely much more vehicles on the road. The weather had not changed. It was as hot as I remembered it, with random unpredictable rain showers. Everything looks washed and crisp after a rain shower. Grandpa's house is on the west coast of Demerara. I arrived at the house, and my cousin was ecstatic to see me. But Grandpa was not in his usual chair at the table. "Where's Aja?"
Oh, he went to the mandir.
Raja?
I do not take sugar in my tea. As a matter of fact, I do not take sugar at all because brown sugar is too bitter for me.
What do you mean, Raja?
Sugar is a bittersweet product for me. My father worked on a sugar estate, and those were the good times. Sugar gave us everything: a house to live in, food, clothes, toys, and even my education. One day, when I was your age, or maybe a little younger, my father told me a story. I can still hear his voice resonating in my head. Young, vibrant.
Beta. There is a story I want to tell you. It began in 1838. Two ships arrived in British Guiana that night. The Hesperus landed at Highbury in Berbice, and the Whitby landed at Vredenhoek in Demerara. My father was on the Whitby, a cargo ship that was carrying human passengers. They came to replace slave labor on the sugar plantations of British Guiana. Slavery was a terrible thing. Human beings were treated worse than animals. An African slave named Kofi led a successful rebellion in Berbice in 1763. "70 years later, sometime between 1833 and 1834, slavery ended on the plantations. This created a shortage of labor. After unsuccessfully trying with Chinese and Portuguese coolies, the plantation owners turned to India to supply the new labor force. The journey was not a pleasant one. It was long and arduous. It lasted 112 days at sea. Picture 250 people living in an area about 25 feet wide and maybe 80 to 90 feet long for 3 months and 22 days with no bathrooms, no bedrooms, and no privacy. There was a bucket in a corner that was meant to be a bathroom for everyone, but often no one bothered or couldn't get to it in time. The air was constantly dank and putrid. Sores broke out on their bodies. They slept any way they could, if they could even sleep at all, with the sores and blisters on their skin. They were fed twice daily, a sloppy mix of rice and beans boiled together. A crew member would come down to the cargo hold and give out food and water to the hungry Indians. Other times, they would just put the bucket down and watch them fight for food. When someone did not get up for food, they knew that he was dead. The body would be picked up and dumped unceremoniously into the ocean. Some lost their minds, went crazy, tried to jump off the boat, and swim back to India. Some actually jumped off the boat, but only succeeded in killing themselves. Among the lot were 5 women and 6 children. Most were men looking for a better life for their families. They were from Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal. The villagers were poor farmers, accustomed to simple living and hard work. The British had promised them high-paying jobs and a 5-year contract. After the 5 years, they were free to return to India with enough money to offer huge dowries for the marriage of their daughters. And so they bought into it. But the British did not go into the villages of India and tell that story. It had to be believable. So they had the village leaders do it for them. And hearing it from one of your own made it believable. The village leaders also had an added incentive: money. The more people they led to the ship, the more they were paid. And so began the journey.
But that sounded better than it actually was. As indentured laborers, they were paid pennies per day, but were charged taxes. This made it practically impossible to be able to afford the passage to return. Some did return, but that was a problem by itself. Once they left the shores of India and crossed the Kalapani, they were considered to be outcasts, and they were not accepted back into society.
Finally, on May 5th, 1838, they arrived in British Guiana in the middle of the night. Their dignity trampled and their spirits broken. When they arrived on the plantation, they were led to a crude shack put together with slabs of irregular wood with huge gaps in between. The Indians called it a logie. The logie was infested with termites and bugs, and the roof had large holes in it. They were given 2 blankets, 2 cups, a wooden bowl, and a room to be shared by 4 persons. In the days to come that became months, then years, the laborers were up before sunrise, and with meager meals in their stomachs, prepared from whatever they had at their disposal, they walked for miles to the sugarcane fields. Most of what were available to them were leftovers from slavery: few utensils, a kitchen garden, and anything that they brought with them. They labored under the watchful eyes of plantation owners and managers. In the hot tropical sun, they cut the cane manually, bending at the waist for more than 8 hours a day. When they were not cutting, they were weeding the grass or planting the cane. All of these activities would require bending from the waist. Many would remain that way in their old age, unable to stand upright. With the midday temperature at 90 degrees and their bodies exposed, they were perpetually sunburnt. Shoulder to shoulder, they learned to share and get along. They shared their food, they shared their water, and they helped each other in the fields. Back at their logies, they were left with their thoughts of what they remembered of India, what they missed, what they longed for. They created a brotherhood among themselves, forged by their common plight. They became Jahaji Bhai, brothers from the ship.
पालसा में रवि भक्षी लियो तब तीनहु लोक भयो अंधियारो ताहि सोत्रस भयो जग को यह संकट काहू सो जात न तारो देवन आने करी बिनती तब चार दियो रवि कष्ट निवारो हो नहीं जानत है जग में कभी संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो बाली के त्रस कपीस बसे गिरी जात महाप्रभु पंत निहारो चोकी महामुनि शब्द दियो तब चाहिए कौन विचार विचारो के द्विज रूप लिवाया महाप्रभु सो तुम दास की शोक निवारो को नहीं जानत है जग में कपि संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो.
With the passage of time, their pains remained, but their ability to cope developed. They began to look out for each other.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Hey!
Ashhadu an la
Hey, you!
ilaha illallah.
Get back to work, you stupid idiot!
While they looked out for each other and shared most things, there are certain things that the man does not share. And with only 5 women, there are certain things that the man would kill for. The husband was not always victorious. In an effort to avenge the dignity of his wife, he was himself killed. The woman, now left on her own, had no choice but to live with another man for the security of it. And the story repeats itself. In this vicious cycle, many of the men were either murdered or hung for committing murder. By the end of the 5th year, 147 men remained. And if that was not enough to cause tension among the Indian men, they were the white plantation owners and managers who took advantage of the women. This behavior was all too familiar to the African woman.
अपनी कहानी किसको सुनाऊं, अपनी कहानी किसको सुनाऊं, सुनने वाला कोई नहीं है, सुनने वाला कोई नहीं है, कोई नहीं है। अपनी कहानी किसको सुनाऊं, अपनी कहानी किसको सुनाऊं। किसे है परवाह अपने बेगाने की, किसे है परवाह अपने बेगाने की, सभी अनजाने हो गई है। भूल हुई थी मजबूरी में, दर्द सहना जो लिखा था, दर्द सहना जो लिखा था। अपनी कहानी किसको सुनाऊं। पिंजरे में परिंदे की तरह कैद होना लिखा हुआ था। भाई बहन माँ, भाई बहन माँ, बाप से बिछुड़ा किसी के काम ना आ सका हूँ। अपनी कहानी किसको सुनाऊं। कर्ज उतारूं कैसे सबका, भारत माँ को नमन करूं मैं। कर्ज उतारूं कैसे सबका, भारत माँ को नमन करूं मैं। कर्ज उतारूं कैसे सबका, भारत माँ को नमन करूं मैं। अपनी कहानी किसको सुनाऊं, अपनी कहानी किसको सुनाऊं। सुनने वाला कोई नहीं सुनाऊं अपनी कहानी किसको सुनाऊं।
Soon there were children on the plantations with blue eyes in Indian households. They were the blue-eyed bastards. They did not belong in the house of the plantation owners, nor were they welcome in the homes of the laborers. But life and labor must go on. The plantation owners were relentless in their quest for sugar. The demand for sugar in Europe was at its highest during the 1800s, and that meant huge profits. More Indians came, and more plantations opened up. They tilled the soil and fetched bundles of sugarcane on their bare heads. The bundles of cane were taken to the factory where it was crushed and its juice extracted, then boiled until it became little glittering grains of golden brown sweetness, known to the world as Demerara sugar.
Today there are factories around the world that produce Demerara sugar, but not one of them is even close to the plantations of Demerara. And that hurts me. My father, my grandfather, as well as thousands of others have sacrificed their lives for that Demerara sugar. Tainton Lyle and Billington are both in England. Olive Nation is in Massachusetts, and India Tree is in Mauritius, and all are producers of Demerara sugar. I too grew up in Demerara. I too have walked the plantations of Demerara. I have heard the crunch of sugarcane leaves under my feet and the distant crack of a whip that echoes from the plantation from over 180 years ago. Every time I look at a spoonful of golden brown Demerara sugar, I see a bitter past. A past that enslaved the Africans and indentured the Indians. A past that took honest, peaceful men and women, ripped them from their families, stripped them of their dignity, and tortured them into submission. To this day, Africans and Indians are consistently struggling to preserve their dignity while fighting the severity of their scars of the past. I will not lift a spoonful of sugar to put in my tea. That brown sugar is too bitter for me.